We'll call this meeting to order and open with the Pledge of Allegiance. David, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thanks to everybody for coming to our meeting. This is the October 4th, 2023 hearing of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Yeah, please hold it down. Roll call, please.
Mr. Boggs.
Here.
Mr. Burring.
Here.
Ms. Dougherty.
Here.
Mr. Mancino.
Here.
Ms. Rogers.
Here.
Mr. Smiley. Mr. Truax.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum present. We'll move on the agenda. We have no old business from prior meetings. So we'll go to the next section 5A. It's the final development plan application FP 23002.
Correct. So the applicant here is Grand Communities. The acreage is about 7.855 out of the total 145, currently zoned R10 high density residential. The applicant requesting approval of a final plan.
Back here, nobody come back here and hear what you guys are saying.
Requesting approval of a final plan application for section 5 of the Heron Manor subdivision pursuant to section 1113.28 of the Pataskala Code. Take a look up here. This yellow outline is the entire subdivision of Heron Manor. This red section right here is proposed section 5. So the preliminary plan was approved in 2019 for 145 single-family lots on about 46 acres, 6 proposed phases with a net density of 3.72 units per acre and 10.18 acres of open space, or about 21.94% of the total. There are 2 variances that were approved as part of that preliminary plan. The first one, that trees are to be spaced at 50 feet on center instead of 30, and they wanted a different type of subdivision identification sign. Here's a look at the proposed section 5. So you have Alonzo Palmer being extended out here to Water Lily Way. North is to the right on this photo. A cul-de-sac down here and 33 lots. Here's a kind of color view that the applicant provided showing the landscaping with the street trees and some additional trees interspersed throughout the rear yards. Construction plans were approved on March 3rd of this year. There's 33 lots on about 7.86 acres. There's no reserve areas in this section. There's also a quick summary of all the phases thus far. And then the final 6th phase would be 14 lots. That's the construction plans for that are currently under review. So as part of our review, planning and zoning would offer the following comments. The construction plans were approved and signed. There was a condition of approval on the preliminary plan that construction traffic has to be routed through Heron Manor, not through the adjacent subdivisions, so they can't come up, go through Isaac Tharp and Alonzo Palmer. We've had some issues with that thus far, with drivers either moving barricades or just driving through people's lawns, so we just want to reiterate that they cannot be doing that. Didn't have any other comments on the plans themselves, didn't receive any other comments from any other departments or agencies. For the surrounding properties, to the north is zoned R10, which is the future section 6. To the east is R10, which is the current section 4, which is under construction. To the south, you have sections 1 and 2, which are complete. To the west, you have agricultural zoning, which is currently used for agriculture. So should the Planning and Zoning Commission choose to recommend or approve the applicant's request, the following conditions may be considered. 1, the applicant shall submit a Mylar copy of the final development plan to the Planning and Zoning Department for signatures. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, thank you. Questions for staff? Stephanie?
I do none.
Thank you. David?
None.
Jerry?
Just one question on the issues of the taking the wrong routes. Are we taking steps, and what's the steps if they continue to keep doing that?
That would go through the Public Service Department. Ultimately, it could impact their approval, I would think in some way, but it's basically under the enforcement of the Public Service Department.
And
So tonight, we just wanted to reiterate, hey, this is still applicable,
Absolutely.
folks.
Just wanted to verify that.
Mhm.
Yep.
No other questions, sir.
Thank you. Ann?
No.
No, thanks. Frank?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a representative from the applicant here? Oh, yes,
Step over.
yes, if you would, step over to the podium there, and Lisa will swear you in.
Raise your hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, and if you would start with your name and address, please.
My name is David Deniston. I'm here as a member of Advanced Civil Design, 781 Science Boulevard, Suite 100, Gahanna, Ohio. I'm here representing Grand Communities. Really, I have nothing to add. Jack has pretty much covered everything. As he said, we're in the 5th section of a 6-section subdivision, so I think everything's, at this point, pretty well ironed out. So, as he said, the construction plans are all approved. The intent is within the next 30 to 45 days, I think, start working on the utilities.
Okay, thank you. Stand by for questions. Commission members, do you have any questions for the applicant? David?
No.
No? Jerry?
I'm going to ask you the same questions. What steps have you taken to correct the routing of using the wrong roads and that?
Well, since I'm the engineer and not the developer, there's not many steps I can take other than to reiterate, and I have reiterated. Once Jack pointed that out in the staff report, I have brought it to the attention of the developer, and he will be talking with his contractors to reiterate and stress that they're not supposed to be doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ann? Frank?
Nope.
Stephanie?
No.
Thank you. I have a number of speaker request forms that I didn't see any for this application. Is there anyone in the audience that is here to speak about this? Okay, if not, then thank you. We'll go to discussion on commission members. Any comments, or if not, entertain a motion for action tonight?
I'll make a motion that we approve final application plan FFP-23-002 with the one modification that has been put on file.
I second.
Thank you, Stephanie. A second. Any discussion on the motion to approve with the one modification? Roll call.
Mr. Burring,
Yes.
Mr. Truax,
Yes.
Mr. Boggs,
Yes.
Ms. Rogers. Yes. Mr. Mancino,
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is rezoning application ZON 23002.
All right, thank you. The applicant is Fair Lady Development Holdings LLC. Owner of the properties are Fair Lady LLC and Greenbrier Licking LLC. There's 4 properties to be considered with this application, totaling about 192 acres. Current zoning is rural residential and R87, and they're proposing to rezone the property to planned manufacturing pursuant to 12-1710 of the Pataskala Code. So properties, part of this application are outlined in yellow. You have 2 of the large properties here. The Greenbrier property is down here to the southwest, and a small portion still owned by Fair Lady at the intersection with Morse Beach, Clark State. So as I mentioned, there's 4 properties. 3 are under the ownership of Fair Lady LLC, and these are currently being used for agriculture. There's 1 property owned by Greenbrier that has a single-family home and approximately 8 accessory buildings on it. So their request, as I mentioned, is to rezone to planned manufacturing for the Fair Lady Technology Park. This would be manufacturing, logistics, and development campus. This would be constructed in phases. According to their concept plan, it would be comprised of approximately 1.2 million square feet of industrial space, and they expect about 350,000 square feet in phase 1. So on their concept plan, they show access with the full access onto Morse and access via a future roundabout at the intersection I mentioned with Clark State, Morse, and Beach Road. There's no construction date determined on when that roundabout would be put in. I know New Albany has plans for it, not fully vetted or engineered, but they have conceptual plans at this point, but have not determined a date of construction. Until that point of construction, it was discussed about putting a fifth leg off that roundabout. The applicant has proposed a temporary access off Clark State Road until that roundabout can be completed. And at that point, that access will be removed and the access will come in from the future roundabout. The setback and mounding is in compliance with the updated plan manufacturing regulations. These were approved by council on September 18th. With the 30-day period, they should be officially on the books about October 18th. So here's their conceptual plan here. Clark State, Beach, Morse Road, Graham's to the south, Summit's to the east. As I mentioned, here's the roundabout, their main access off of Morse Road here. The temporary access will come in off Clark State until such time that this will be constructed with the potential for a fifth leg from that roundabout into the site. So the comprehensive plan on the future land use map recommends the land use be innovation. And innovation is described as large-scale industrial research and office users. This would have proximity to local, regional, and national transportation networks and would include extensive buffering from incompatible use. Based upon what they presented, this would be in line with the recommendations of the future land use map. So tonight, we have the rezoning request from rural residential and R87 to plan manufacturing. So as you're familiar, we have two different zoning types. There's one that is a planned development district where the plan comes in, planning commission and ultimately council look at the plan, and whatever, if that is approved, they must adhere to the plan. This is not that. This is a straight rezoning wherein essentially you're looking to say, should we change the color on the map from what it is now to the plan manufacturing classification? With that, the plan is conceptual at this point. They are not beholden to adhere to the plan at this time. So they're just giving you a concept of what they're thinking for the properties, but we cannot hold them to that. So this is a straight rezoning at this point. So there could be the possibility for putting conditions on the plan. So to say your access must be here, you must do this, must do that. We'll add those conditions to our recommendation. The Planning and Zoning Commission and ultimately council cannot place conditions on a rezoning. That is considered contract zoning and that is illegal. So with this, what we're looking at tonight, it's a straight zoning, the plan is conceptual, and what the Planning Commission must consider essentially, is it appropriate to change the color on the map to allow industrial type uses at these locations. So Planning Commission should consider the criteria in 12-1704, the information from other departments and agencies contained in the staff report, and public input. So future development on this property. So if we say this is rezoned to plan manufacturing, as the property develops, then they must submit a plan that they must adhere to. They have to do stormwater calculations. They would have to do a traffic study. It comes to Planning Commission for a recommendation, then on to council for final approval. So if they were to develop this in 20-acre increments, every time they develop, they have to have a plan. It has to be approved by council, and they have to provide all the plans and documentation that then they must adhere to when they build. So following a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, this will go to council for a public hearing, has to be at least 30 days, 3 readings, and then council has the final say on any rezoning requests. So the city engineer mentioned that he would recommend a traffic study to determine when the second access point from the roundabout would be constructed. He also mentioned that if the roads shown in the concept plan, the internal roads are to be public, they must be built to city standards. The Public Service Director stated that he opposed any access, temporary or permanent, from Clark State Road due to the site distance, proximity to the intersection, and the potential traffic volumes. The Water and Sewer District said there's currently no water or sewer infrastructure to the property. Downstream improvements to the existing infrastructure would also need to be made. They stated that they do have some projects in design, but have not allocated funding for that. So they don't have a time frame on when they're going to run the utilities up Summit Road. So the surrounding property, there's rural residential in Pataskala, that's a single-family home. There's rural residential in Jersey Township, which is agriculture. And then there's general employment, that's in New Albany, and that is also currently agriculture. To the east, it's R87, as is the south, both with single-family homes. And to the west is rural residential with single-family homes. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scott. Questions for Scott from the commission? Jerry?
Just want to make sure, Scott, to reiterate, in terms of making conditions, we can't put any conditions based off of the information from the city engineer or anything like it at this time. Is that correct?
No conditions can be placed on a straight rezoning, or any rezoning for that matter. You just look at the merits of the case based upon that. So we can't do a condition that access must be here or there. It's just the rezoning request.
Just asking a question. Thank you, sir.
I have a question about the comprehensive plan and the innovation zone.
Mhm.
Was the intention for the innovation to be more large-scale, single-use buildings, or as in this proposal, a bunch of small buildings that are occupying a site?
There was no thought in terms of we want it to be 1 million square foot warehouse or several smaller ones. So it was just those types of uses that are in our corporate park now could be applied up there.
Because it mentioned also office space and research, and the plan I see looks like a kind of just a typical small industrial park.
That's correct.
Ann?
So if we did approve it, we can't put a condition on access.
No conditions can be placed upon a rezoning.
Okay, so then they would be able to access from Clark and Morse if we approved it.
What would happen is if it's approved, so the color on the map changes and then now allows those types of uses. As they develop it, based upon the updated plan manufacturing regulations, each new development, so if it's 20 acres at a time, has to come in with a plan, traffic study, proposed access, all those types of things, and that's reviewed on a case-by-case basis with a recommendation from Planning Commission for approval by council.
So changing the zoning does not guarantee that there would be access in the future off of Clark State.
That's correct.
It also doesn't guarantee that there wouldn't be. It really doesn't address it, basically, is what we're saying.
At this stage, it does not.
That would all be an argument, excuse me, and I just want to make sure, that will all be an argument for when they come with the plan, correct?
That's correct.
Or discussion.
That would be a
I should say.
discussion at that
for
point.
when they-
Okay, so the access from Morse, as they develop, would the road have to be updated before that? Since Morse Road can't handle this, apparently the semi-traffic and all that.
So if we're using the proposed access off of Morris as an example, they're going to develop a property, let's say at that location. At that point, the project will require a traffic impact study, which looks at the nearest intersections, the impacts that has, and it also looks at access management. So with that will come recommendations to say the road needs to be widened, or there needs to be turn lanes or deceleration lanes. That's when the traffic study would have that information, and that would be applied to the plan.
And there's currently no access to that proposed property from Morse Road.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Frank?
And is this project part of a larger that also affects New Albany and some of the other surrounding communities, or is it just strictly within Pataskala?
It's strictly within Pataskala.
Okay. I have no other questions at this time.
Thank you. Stephanie?
I think you guys took care of the questions I had. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, David? No. Okay, representative of the applicant. And again, Lisa will swear you in.
Do you swear from the testimony that you give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right. Hey, good evening. Steve Cutler, I was here a couple months ago in front of you, kind of conceptually talking about this.
For the record, just if you would give your address too, name and address.
Yeah, Steve Cutler, funny last name, Cuckler, 94 North Sandusky Street, Delaware, Ohio.
Thanks.
Am I good now?
Yep, you're good. For now.
I don't want to get you mad. My name is Steve Cutler here on behalf of the applicant. We have a number of folks here today who could help answer some questions that you all might have. We have Joel, our civil engineers here. We have Mr. Maniaci, who's involved in the real estate transaction itself. Andrew Martin, he's a Pickerington guy, don't hold that against him, but he's here tonight as well. And then Todd Ferris, our land planner, here to answer any questions. And if it's okay, Chairman, I'll have Todd come up here in a little bit and maybe kind of discuss the high level of what we're thinking conceptually. But basically, bottom line, again, we've been working on this. Staff has been really fantastic and professional to work with. Been working on this maybe, a year. You didn't have gray hair a year ago. I had black hair, believe it or not, last year. But we're today, we've been working on this project. I know it's a big project. It's a lot coming at everybody. But what we're basically asking tonight is to apply the updated plan manufacturing code that you all have adopted recently and apply that to a piece of ground that has been identified by the city in the comp plan to allow for this use. And I think it's important to note, this is one step. Zoning is one step in a multiple step plan, meaning you get zoning, there's not, let's say zoning was approved tonight, there's no one turning dirt out there tomorrow, right? It doesn't work like that. In this case, the zoning happens, God willing, but then we got to take, there's sewer and water access issues, there's road access issues that have been discussed. We're talking tens of millions, 30, 40, $50 million of road improvements and water improvements and sewer improvements that still have to be done, figured out, financed, and so forth to the site. Once that happens to the site, then we would come back in front of you, as Scott eloquently put together, for final development plan for the smaller pieces within the total, the big square, if you will. So we would come back in front of you in a couple of years with, hey, here's our plan for these 20 acres within it. Obviously, then we have a hearing, and then obviously a recommendation to council. But that's kind of the steps through this. This is not vote, approve, and bulldozers are out there tomorrow. It just doesn't work like that. There's a lot to be done. This is a big undertaking. The roads are a big project just above themselves, right? It's like the United Nations out there. You got the city of New Albany, right? You've got Licking County, Franklin County has a say, ODOT has a say because it's access to 161. So there's a lot of folks, government bureaucrats, no offense, Scott, that have to come together and agree on the road access and how many lanes and what's the size of the roundabout. There's so many things that have to be done. But the key to kind of trying to figure out some of these road issues, and some of these road issues exist now, right? So trying to figure it out, figuring them out takes time, and until those are all figured out, we wouldn't even be in front of you for a final development review until all these water, sewer, and road issues are figured out. But if it's okay, Todd, did you have anything to add on site plan and kind of conceptually? Again, this is conceptual. We just try to put it together per your all's code.
Yep. Before you start, you'll need to be sworn in as well. And actually, if your other representatives are going to speak at all, we should swear them in all at the same time. Make it easier.
Joel, you better get up there. I'm going to get sworn in twice.
You swear affirm the testimony that you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thanks.
Is this on? Okay, good.
Click it up.
Click it up. Okay, because I know in the back it is difficult to hear. So again, I'm Todd Ferris with Ferris Planning and Design, 4876 Cemetery Road, Hilliard, Ohio. we're excited about this project for a couple of reasons. I've worked on several industrial type of innovation parks throughout the Central Ohio region, and none have the extensive buffering standards that Pataskala has put forward on this site. None of them, believe it or not, none of them. So I'm a landscape architect by trade. And the mounting and landscape package that will be put together on this will far exceed any that I have seen done in any of the regions here in Central Ohio. So from that standpoint, I think that the council has moved forward with a vision that protects the surrounding properties from the visual and the acoustic issues that would be that would come from a project of this nature. And preserve those property values surrounding it with what's being proposed. And the client has agreed to do all of those things that have been put forward in that zoning text, which are, like I said, very extensive. So again, we know that we have some issues to work out with the traffic. Those have been there, and we just want to be able to move this portion along so we can start addressing that and utility connections. And that's about all I have to say. So from an engineering standpoint, I think we're okay.
Okay, thank you.
You can leave that on.
Yeah, just leave it on. We have questions for the applicant. I think, yeah, it's your turn.
No questions.
Is there a reason you guys chose to do the rezoning application as opposed to a planned development district? I guess in my head, I kind of, when I'm reviewing just the application for rezoning, I'm kind of imagining, okay, what's the worst case scenario if they didn't adhere to it, and most offensive thing that could be in that area versus, planned development. I know what we're getting into a little bit more. So.
No, that's a great question. If you recall, when we were here for a conceptual meeting, we were discussing doing a planned manufacturing. I think it came down to one of the issues was until it's like chicken or the egg. If this makes sense, it's going to be hard to explain, but I'll do my best. And that is per Pataskala code, you have to have all the roads and water and sewer, everything figured out prior to moving forward with the planned manufacturing district. The reality is it's going to take years to figure out the roads, right? Because of the United Nations issue with all the various government agencies to do. And there's going to be a heavy ask of the applicant, our clients, to contribute to those road improvements. And so it's hard to contribute to something unless you know you can kind of do something, right? So the issue was, and having spoken to the city extensively, a lot of those code requirements and restrictions and things of that nature that we were talking about back in June as part of our planned manufacturing actually have been incorporated extensively as part of Pataskala's updated manufacturing code. So just to be honest with you, that's kind of why we're doing it. I think that makes it simpler for everybody to follow. And that way, then, instead of having, all this acreage already done planned manufacturing, then it also continues to allow yet continued oversight by this body, by residents, neighbors, and by the city. So we can't just go out and build the whole thing and be done with it, right? We have every 20 acres, we got to come out, we got to come in front of you guys and get your thoughts and make sure we're doing it properly. So that was probably the other reason we thought we would do it that way.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Right. Stephanie?
I don't really have any questions, but I do have some comments and some concerns. So just for all intents and purposes, the purpose of this meeting today is to see if it makes sense, right, to rezone the property from rural residential, medium low density residential to planned manufacturing, right? That's all we're doing today, correct?
Right.
And in my mind, there's so many issues, right? It's not just traffic. You could, although that's going to impact it a lot.
Sure.
The fact that you don't have access to water and sewer, there's nothing in the budget for that.
Correct.
But also, I know this board, as well as myself specifically, the biggest factor that we consider for these things is what impact is it going to have on the residents and in the community?
Right.
If I'm not missing my guess, I'm going to say that they're probably not happy about this.
Sure.
This is their homes, this
Yeah,
is
of
where they
course.
live. And so, again, I just wanted to let you know that for me personally, I understand what you're doing,
Mhm.
but a lot of this doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense for me to
Why
vote
would they
to
pass it?
redo that. So, but again, I don't know what else you would have to say, to me about that, but I'm just saying, there's a lot of concerns here. And I know it would take years and years and years, but, I don't know how you would resolve some of those issues when the whole surrounding areas are nothing but residential and agriculture, so that's just my 2 cents on it.
Thank you. David?
I had the same question about why going to the straight plan manufacturing instead of the plan development. That was my question. I think you already addressed that.
Thanks. Jared?
I have no questions at this moment. No.
Thanks. Just one little detail that in your documentation. I know we've had discussions about water and sewer that are a few years out before they can service the area. You did have statements from electric for sure. Gas, natural gas. Did they say they could provide service up there?
We have those service letters, right? Sorry, I'll bring up the engineer. He's
Okay. I mean, it's just,
smarter than me on
I'm
this.
hiding back there.
Yeah, go ahead, Joel. Any question on the?
So
Lisa?
He was sworn.
Oh, you're sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Joel Perry, 2550 Corporate Exchange Drive, Columbus, Ohio. I'm with American Structure Point Civil Engineer. So, I know that we have talked about water and sewer a lot. Maybe just a quick status of kind of where we stand with traffic and with water and sewer. I know that traffic specifically, there is the access issue off of Clark. However, we've started initial conversations as well with Licking County for the access on Morse Road. I think that through their process, that's kind of what we have been talking about. We would continue to work, put together traffic studies, figure out what the solution is on Morse while the Clark roundabout kind of works itself out, so to speak, amongst the many municipalities. The water and sewer, I know within the last probably week or 2 weeks, we have put together some alignments for Southwest Licking Water and Sewer on how they would potentially route that up Summit around the property. So the conversations around that have also started. Now funding, I know that we've talked about funding. I'm not too privy to the funding information on that, but design-wise, I think that there is a plan in place to at least look at routing, what it would look like for Southwest Licking to use their engineers with us as well and find a solution for the property. Electric and gas, we have opened up conversations with AEP. We've talked about some of the power needs. Ultimately, they're pretty reflective of what the end product would be. So we've kind of alluded to the fact that this is a little bit more conceptual in nature. There are a few concept plans floating around, very, very similar, but just different configurations, different end users, trying to keep the possibilities open. AEP is aware of the project, and we've started to discuss power requirements depending on what end user we typically get. So in the early conversations with AEP, but they are aware of the project. And then we are also working with the gas company in the area, probably a little bit more preliminarily, mainly because the electric shortage or the electric capacity tends to be the long lead time on these items. So conversations have been opened up with pretty much all utility providers. Where they're at in the process is a little bit dependent on the end user, but that's kind of the status of where we stand with those.
Okay, one personal curiosity thing. The proposal that may or may not happen as it's discussed here, data centers. What about data communication?
That
utilities?
would be one of the heavier users.
Right.
So yes, we have opened up conversations with AEP and the gas company for the possibility of a data center, and then
telecommunications, I think was that the question?
Yes, telecommunications.
Yeah, so we've sent out requests to start those conversations, have probably been asking about that for a month or so, and just haven't quite got the conversation started with that. Data center is just one of kind of the uses that we've proposed in the many scenarios that we've looked at. So eventually that we would pursue that a little heavier if we started to target an end user, et cetera. But preliminarily, it's out there.
Okay. And again, I understand this is just a concept plan.
Yep. Yeah, I would just add that, this is a large project. We like to do a lot of that utility coordination early. But, for a lot of these users, for a lot of these a lot of these companies, they really do like to have a lot of that information, loading information for the buildings, gas loading information for the buildings, et cetera, before they start to look at their designs. So it is a little bit of, we're giving them the information, telling them that it's coming, and then they're asking for a little bit further information that maybe we do or do not have yet, depending on where we're at in this process.
Okay. Thanks. Any further questions for any of the applicants at this time? No? Okay, thank you. Stand by. So next we'll go to a period of public comment, and considering the number of folks that we have here, I got a bunch of speaker requests. I think we need to do our 5-minute time per speaker. We do have one gentleman who's representing a group, and he'll get more time, but in general, 5 minutes. I'll make that formal, just move that we limit public comment to 5 minutes per person. That's a motion.
I second.
David, thank you. Sorry, Lisa. Kind of popped that on you without warning you.
Who seconded that?
I'll second.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Dockery?
Yes.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Mr. Truax?
Yes.
Mr. Burring?
Yes.
Mr. Mancino?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Now, the way this works, we'll make sure everybody has a chance. We got a big stack of speaker request forms here. We'll call you one at a time. You'll be sworn in, and then we'll start a timer. And you want to
Yes.
sound what this?
Yeah. With the timer, when the timer goes off, you can finish your thought, but don't roll into another subject. So if I say time, just go ahead and finish your argument or discussion, and then, stop if you would, please. That way we don't have to keep cutting people off, if you would, please.
Okay, and a couple of other things too. If you have one shot, basically. I mean, you finish a couple of minutes and then you want to come back later, and we really can't do that. So, nor could you pass your time on to some other person. I think that should be clear, pretty much. So we'll start. The first request we have is, just a general comment too. If I butcher your name, I'm sorry. Sometimes I don't know how your pronunciations are, or can't read your writing. That's my problem, not yours. Vicky Gigliotti.
That was close. I'll
Okay.
take it. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so you
Yes. Vicky Gelati, 14539 Clark State Road. After living in New Albany for over 20 years, we decided we wanted to live somewhere quieter, more rural. In 2018, we found the perfect land on Clark State Road upon which to build. Beautiful trees, ponds, wetlands, inhabited by an array of wildlife. We thoughtfully designed our home, even researching the zoning of the surrounding areas, as this was to be our forever home. I struggle to understand the rationale for designating the entire northwest corner of Pataskala as an innovation area. I realize Pataskala would like to piggyback on the New Albany Business Park, but there are hundreds of undeveloped commercial acres along Broad Street, Main Street, and Etna Parkway with existing infrastructure to support PM zoning, as well as there's still hundreds of acres available in the New Albany Business Park. This isn't about not wanting to live next door to an industrial park. We basically already do. For the innovation area to exist, our homes can't. If this rezoning is approved, we and eventually everyone in the innovation area will have to completely start over. With the prevailing mortgage rate at 7%, and ours is currently at 2%, we couldn't buy back our New Albany house or find new land to build on. I just don't understand why you would want to intentionally displace an entire area of loyal, long-term tax-paying residents. Just the 4 adjacent properties there, we pay well over $50,000 in property taxes a year, and that was before this new reappraisals. And you have 4 dual income households with no children, so you have our income taxes coming in. And with, the expense of this and tax abatements, you don't know how long it'll be before you receive an incremental dollar. The applicant's asking for a major blanket rezoning, appearing to operate on the if you rezone, they'll come mentality. The only detail they can give us is boutique-sized warehouses in phases. We don't know a timeline, spec buildings, how many warehouses, tenant mix, operating hours or receiving hours of any of this business. As Scott has said, the applicant's not even beholden to adhere to their submitted plan. So even if they did tell us this, it could change without any sort of notice. So I don't understand this whole process if we can't make them adhere to what they're telling us. There's no infrastructure of roadways, water, sewer in place or readily available. As stated, the initial roundabout or the initial application had a roundabout with a 5th leg going directly into the development. And while this would have given direct access, it would not reduce or prevent subsequent increased traffic up Clark State. The application has now changed to, since there's no construction date for the roundabout, that they want a temporary access off Clark State Road until such time that the roundabout can be constructed. The Public Service Director has stated in his comment that for numerous reasons, access off Clark State would not be feasible. The application is being considered without a traffic study, even though the city engineer comments the applicant needs to indicate when the second access point will be constructed, as currently the description is extremely vague, and he states a traffic impact study is recommended. The company originally contracted to perform a traffic study listed full build-out as a parameter. I don't understand how full build-out scenarios can be accurate or even considered when you have no information about the number of parcels, size of parcels, business types. We currently have a daily parade of cement trucks and other construction vehicles for the MI development and beach road construction sites, in addition to increased commuter traffic to the New Albany Business Park. And I often see Amazon tractor trailer trucks rolling right up Clark State. A future roundabout, if ever constructed, will not keep trucks or commuter traffics from using Clark State to access this new development. Vehicles routinely drive well above the posted speed limit of 35 miles an hour, resulting in vehicles in the ditch every couple of months. As Scott has said, the staff report uses the phrase essentially change the color on the zoning map. And these seemingly benign words are just a euphemism, I can say that word at home, for an action that will impact every aspect of our daily lives and our future. This rezoning not only impacts us that are right next door to the Fair Lady project, but it ensures that every resident in the area will be at risk of the same fate in the future. There's already a daily cacophony of beeping, pounding, clanking, and crashing that we hear from the New Albany Business Park. I can't imagine how much louder and more disruptive those sounds will be right next door, not to mention the disruption of the eventual manufacturing businesses. The comprehensive plan states the goal is to manage growth while keeping rural charm. And just as Commissioner Dougherty has said, many of you have said your main priority is the residents and our quality of life. And I just do not believe that you currently have the information necessary to make an informed decision that will be of life-changing consequence to the surrounding neighbors. So therefore, I respectfully request that you do not approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was right on 5 minutes too. That was very impressive.
I started talking fast again. Thank you.
All right, next up is Gus Cook. And I understand that you are representing a group, and I've got a few others that said they were ceding their time to you, so.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Just so everybody knows, we're gonna go to 10 minutes for this because he's taking other people's.
I'm Gus Cook.
My address is 14536 Clark State Road. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all. And yeah, I'm just going to echo some of the sentiments that I've been hearing. And I think that Vicki did a great job at sort of summarizing the concerns. So I'm going to completely and drastically reduce this. I think we could probably raise hands in the audience and pretty much echo Vicki's comments as opposed to repeating several times. So again, my arc of history in the area is a little bit longer. I was attracted to the rural character of this area. And in 1984, with a deposit that I borrowed, purchased the ground that's on Clark State that I've lived on for 40 years. So 40 years immediately adjacent to this site. I think that's a lot more than a lot of people even in the area with Kyle Moore and so forth. But I think that I've seen an awful lot of change over that period of time. And of course, at that time, it was unincorporated Lima Township. The history follows the merger that took place and a lot of the growth, obviously here over the last many years. So seeing a lot of change. I always expected that something was going to happen, obviously with the Evans property now being considered as Fair Lady. We had very few services, rough road conditions and things over time. Obviously, as Pataskala grew, began to get a lot better. And I just want to say, speaking for myself and really the folks that I'm talking with, we all respect land use rights. Everybody's got the rights to use their land. But here, it's not only the developer and the landowner involved with the application, but it's importantly, as Vicki pointed out, the residents that have lived around the area, paid real estate taxes on full assessed value, not agricultural ground, and actually live there, that have every bit as much right to the land use. So asking questions or even opposing this application doesn't make us NIMBYs. It really just makes us people that want to see a logical development process and reasonable information and assurances that make a plan that is creative perhaps, but makes sense and is a long-term vision. I don't think we have that kind of information at this point. So there are a couple of slides. I'm not going to bore everybody by going through this in great detail. Obviously, there are rural, there are collector, and there are primary roads that are involved. Vicki pointed out, and everybody knows what kind of problem there is here at the intersection of Clark State, Morse, and Beach. 5:30 this morning, because 605 was shut down, and this is to emphasize the point that we've got problems right now, let alone painting the map and allowing what's going to happen take place, that need to be dealt with. And there's very little information for everybody in this room as to how those solutions are coming to pass. Very little. Certainly not in the plan. So slide 1 and 2, I'm just going to slide that down. This is a little bit tighter picture of the area from the air. This is all Fair Lady. You have Kyle Moore over to the east. This is our property here, the little homeowners association that we've established over the last several years. This is the current concept plan. And I raise this point because this is a huge site, obviously, one of the bigger ones that you guys have seen. Not going to reiterate the zoning or any of the things that surround it at this point, but the fact is it impacts many, many people, and including those that use all of these arterials, rural roads, and primary access roads to be able to get to and from. The staff report recommends a traffic study. I understand from conversation with the developer that one's in process. That's great. It's the kind of information you ought to have and we ought to have before a decision like this is made or a recommendation to accept an application, in my view. I won't get into the utility infrastructure. They pretty well covered that, as did your staff report. Hey, water and sewer are 11,000 feet away, 2 miles. There's really no plan other than an idea as to how that's going to be extended. You heard from the engineer, there may be some alignments. How it's funded, the fact that lift stations for the sanitary sewer plus capacity at the actual treatment plant are necessary are, I guess, immaterial at this point, down the line. So this concept plan idea, that you put forward a concept plan. This is a concept plan, and per the chart, as they were saying, you've got a total build out of 1,200,000 square feet. Well, this is the concept plan that was first introduced. It's almost identical, except for this building was eliminated, and this is 2,012,400 square feet or thereabouts. So my point here is that the concept plan, which they don't have to adhere to, is just that. I mean, it's an idea, but that's not to say that any of this is really going to happen. There's no idea of what the general parameters for the construction and development of this site are going to be, what is going on internally, and as we've talked about, there will be iterative plan submittals that will end up having to be submitted, gone through each and every single time, as opposed to a general plan that then they have to adhere to iteratively as they go down the line. So let's see, 3. To me, this is really just a process of kicking it down the road. And it also is having the cart way before the horse in terms of the information that the public has, and I believe that you all have right now. Potential uses, it's wide open within the PM zone, including some of the conditional uses I won't get into. This is the site during the winter. The buffers are great. And I'll tell you, your staff and the planning folks, and I think the applicant has reiterated this, they've done a fantastic job because of the issues that you ran into on Etna Parkway and some of these other places with buffering. The amendment to the code is absolutely terrific. I think it's long needed, but it is really good in terms of protecting land values. The fact is, though, that even special conditions exist whereby in the wintertime, those buffers aren't there. If, for instance, there's a 2-foot mound over here with a few trees on it, you're still going to see that stuff, especially if the elevations are high enough to look great over the top. During foliage, not a real big problem. The other thing that really hasn't been dealt with, again, that are concerns to everyone, we're on well systems, as is all of Kyle Moore. There is a huge amount of sheet drainage that comes through this area. This, again, is the property immediately to the west that feed these pond systems, underground pipe to this one, and then out to the county ditch. This all helps regenerate groundwater. We're all on groundwater. That's the way that we approached this a long time ago, and rural residential was what we thought we were going to have for quite some time. Another one here, concept plan kind of deals with this, and I know that the buffers will, but there's existing wetland, or let's call it vernal wetland areas that need to be preserved and looked after with the plan. This, I know, would be dealt with in engineering plans and site submittals down the line, but it's just stuff that we don't hear anything being talked about, and that's a real concern. There are no parameters for this. This again is Kyle Moore from the air, all well systems through here, as I understand it, right? Storm drainage, we've already talked about a little bit. I'm going to skip over a lot of this stuff and just talk about painting the map. What a bunch of bahooey. Painting the map has impact, folks. Otherwise, if we hadn't painted this with the comprehensive plan, which makes sense as an innovation area, there wouldn't be the motivation to do exactly what's happening right now. Now, I'm not in the way of progress. I don't necessarily mean to say that innovation wouldn't be possible here, but let's do it the right way. You got one chance to do it right. That's my 5, right?
That's your 10.
Okay. Can I wrap it up?
Just finish your, yes, sir. Finish your
Okay.
thought.
Planning Commission has the authority to require at least some basic information before making recommendations regarding the application. I respectfully ask that the city consider requiring a traffic study. It's already in place. Give you more idea of what's going on with that roundabout. And also some finalization of the PM code, which is only a week or 2 away, and the buffering requirements that go along with it. It's not codified until it's approved and done. Scott's done a great job with that. I've had a good conversation with him. We believe the residents and landowners of this area deserve at a minimum some concrete information and plans for dealing with the existing issues before allowing the application to move forward. So I strongly oppose having the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just clarify on the last comment, Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The changes have been approved. I mean, there's no more action needed other than the wait time after the council had adopted the ordinance.
That's correct.
So the new PN district is it's approved. There are no more approvals waiting. It's just in 2 weeks or whatever the time is. That's when it goes into effect.
That's correct. That'll be on the books then.
Yeah, just to clarify that.
Whose pockets don't have it? Seriously, I'm asking that question. Who got money on this deal? That's what I thought. The way you speak.
All right, next up, speaker request, is it Deb Gannon's?
Deb Generis, oh, can I request to go last?
Okay.
Be special.
And I should have said before too, that if you agree with what somebody else has said, you can just say that. You don't have to repeat everything that they said. And it saved you having to go through it all again. Memory's not good. John?
Galati.
Yeah, Galati, okay.
I'm good. I agree with everything Gus and Vicky said, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lowell Marks?
Close.
I'm not from.
Would you swear? That's true, so we got it. Thank you.
Lowell Marks, 345 Edenderry Lane, Pataskala. There's some really good points made here. I want to thank those people. How would you folks raise your hand? How many travel through Morse Road and Beach on a regular basis? Yeah, you do. No? You need to be there when they change shifts. You need to be there when the semis come through. Okay? The big thing here is the infrastructure needs to be done like they did Beach Road before the building starts and before the approvals and so forth. It just makes sense. It's terrible now, and you're betting on to come kind of thing otherwise. If you bring, this is kind of the future, I got a chance to talk about it. If you bring water and sewer up Summit for this project that might happen there, and the city, somebody needs to fund it to come into Calmore. And then we should be able to fund our individual houses through a city loan basis. If it's $3,000 or something, we should be able to pay so much a year towards that, so we get city and sewer and water. Okay, please, in the back of your head, 5, 10 years, 15 years from now. That's pretty much the only thing, in some respect, to all of us. building there is tax money from industry, tax money from income tax. Am I right? And it's not children from a high-density housing that will really impact my taxes, because 80% of my taxes on property are for schools. So it's all negative, but it's negative now. And I really would ask you to put this off until a lot of other things are looked at. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Michael Craig.
We're going to relinquish our request. I think a lot of good points have already been made. I don't see the need for me to stand up there and repeat a lot of really good points that other presenters have made.
Thank you. And Barbara Craig.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about the gives the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Barbara Craig, I'm at 13768 Graham Road, Southwest. And I have a question more than a comment. I didn't understand the straight line zoning? So they were requesting a straight rezoning rather than rezoning to a PDD. And by doing that, you would relinquish all input on the traffic and,
No.
What they do in the surrounding area, is that
It just changes the timing.
it would?
It changes the timing for that input or the discussion on the traffic. It just happens later on a PM district.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So it happens later in the process?
Yeah, so, for example, if this was rezoned, then anytime they go to develop it, so we're gonna do 20 acres at a time. So we're gonna build this building. That's the time where they require a traffic study. We look at utilities, we look at drainage. So it's a case-by-case basis as those come in.
I see, rather than to do it for the overall property.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, that was my question. I don't really have anything else to add. It's all been said, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, we're having troubles.
Jerry Levine, or?
Is it Levine? From Graham Road?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about the gives the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
My name's Jerry Levine. I live at 14033 Graham Road. My family moved there 7 years ago to pass that land down to generations. We approved a new middle school. It's in 2 miles from that property. The Muddy Creek stream runs right through that property and in through my land. What are they doing to redirect that? And can they redirect that?
You have any other, we don't answer that.
Oh,
question.
you don't answer the questions?
Not today.
Well, I just think that this whole thing is a money grab. And we bought in this community based on the zoning that's currently there. And for you to make a quick decision like this is absurd. The people in the community is what it's about. And it's not about tax abatements. You people that are here right now won't even be here when you start getting money from that property. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Scott, would you want to address a tax abatement question?
In order for a tax abatement to be granted, it has to be located within a CRA district, which is a community reinvestment area. At this point, council has explore the opportunity of creating one. You have to do a housing study, and then there's certain legal processes you have to do for that to be in place through county and the state Department of Development. So once the district is in place, someone would have to come and apply for that to council based upon certain criteria, and only at that point could they grant it, and at that point they would discuss the terms and conditions of granting that. So at this point, there's no tax abatement in place. So if they,
And it's done within 10 months after rezoning. That's what you said at the last meeting.
I did not say that.
You said it right.
Yes,
here,
you
so I talked to
did.
you.
I
talked to
did.
you about it.
Don't change it. Yes, you
I'm
did.
not changing it.
Well, that's what you
I
told
asked you a
us.
question. right?
Okay.
I'm trying to answer
let's
your
not make this
question.
an argument.
10 months they
Let's-
could apply for it.
I'm trying to answer the question.
You'll get it.
I think I've been respectful of you folks. I don't think it's outrageous to expect the same. So that is what is going on. Council would have to say, move this forward. Could they do it? Because we were talking hypothetically. Could that happen in 10 months? Yes, but it was a hypothetical question, so I gave you a hypothetical answer. I don't know when, if council will move that forward. So there's no tax abatement in place. Could there be one in the future and could it be granted? Yes, that's up to council. But at this point, nothing is in place.
Well, why don't everybody in here get taxes for their house for the rest of their life then?
Okay, let's,
Let's do that.
Well,
There's no
Then
tax.
we wouldn't be complaining. So let's do that.
I think can we be respectful?
We are. We are.
I mean, you're yelling at me from the back of the
I'm asking
room.
you a question because you're saying.
Well,
no,
there's an
and then 10
appropriate,
months ago, come say, yeah, you're gonna get
there's an
it.
appropriate.
Give it to us. Let
Sir,
everybody here get
hey,
taxes.
Sir, you'll have your 5 minutes, please, if you would, please.
Well, I just got a question.
You will get your 5 minutes.
There's a method in which to ask questions.
No, come on.
okay. All right. Jeff Corin.
Swear from the testimony about to give the truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. My name's Jeff Corrin, 430 Kilkenny Court. I've lived in the Conmore subdivision with my wife Michelle for about 23 years. While I believe the Fair Lady parcels will eventually be developed, I wonder why it can't be as currently zoned. I picture about 55 large homes on what could be called the estates at Fair Lady. But I get it, the land is worth way more money if we follow our little-known comprehensive plan and plunk down 5 million square feet of Etna-like buildings instead of country homes. So understanding money in our little-known comprehensive plan may cause this parcel to be rezoned someday. I feel the city needs to make sure development is done as best as possible, something we can all be proud of. So I have a few observations where I think there are opportunities to do better. My first point is the city recently passed the new Section 1253, Plan Manufacturing. If you haven't read it head to toe, please do so. A lot of what I talk about will reference it. While we acknowledge and approve of the expansion of setbacks, mounding, and vegetative screening, I believe the devil's in the details here. The previous ordinance in section 1253-06A3 had both public water and sewage requirements for the property. The new ordinance falls short of this. In the new ordinance, section 1253-06D, we specifically allow the temporary use of a septic system. I wonder why. Surprisingly enough, Southwest Licking Community Water and Sewer states they may have water capacity once lines are extended, but more than likely they will not have sewer capacity anytime soon. Are we willing to allow an industrial site surrounded by homes on well water to operate on a temporary septic system? Our rules do. Is there a precedent for this in the city? How temporary? The water district cannot give a timeline in their comments to this application. The ordinance says septic systems may be monitored, not shall be monitored. So once something toxic is dumped down the drain, how do we find out? If we find out, will it be too late? I can see the story now. An unmonitored industrial septic system leaked toxic chemicals in a local water supply, causing residents to permanently abandon their wells. I ask this council to ensure that never happens. My second point is section 1253-05Q states a traffic impact study shall be required to determine the need for traffic safety measures and associated access improvements. To my knowledge, no study has been done. It appears the city is choosing to ignore its own ordinance. Why not take the time and baseline traffic now so we can make smarter decisions in the future? It's probably why this section was actually enacted. My third point has to do with the difference between innovation zoning in our comprehensive plan and versus plan manufacturing. Innovation suggested a maximum building percentage of about 45% of the space. Planned manufacturing goes all the way to 65%. The 20% difference on this parcel is about 1.6 million additional square feet. That's a lot. I think it's bigger than that solar panel assembly plant down south of Broad. So this is a 200 acre of prime land just south of amazing businesses like Google, Amazon, and Facebook. Shouldn't we take the time to ensure what is built is not just another Etna-looking manufacturing district? We could use this opportunity to put Pataskala on the map instead of being New Albany's ugly stepsister. My fourth and final point is we have been requesting two specific changes as part of this process. We being Kyle Moore. The first is around setbacks and the second is around access points. We would like to have the setbacks, bounding, and vegetative screening around Summit Road be the same as Graham Road. The new planned manufacturing ordinance gives larger setbacks, mounting, and screening to Graham Road versus Summit Road because Graham is labeled a rural road and Summit is considered a connector road. Additionally, we feel strongly no entrances or exits should ever be allowed onto Summit Road for the same reason they are not allowed on Graham Road. But entrances and exits would be allowed for the new ordinance, section 1253.05M. We tried to incorporate these changes into the new ordinance, but we're told that they could not be included for legal reasons. We then believe we could have them propose these changes here in this meeting, but we find out that this zoning application cannot be approved with conditions. However, section 1253.10 allows conditions to be added by this body. I'm confused, but my guess is conditions could be added as long as they are unilateral and not tit for tat. If these two changes are not incorporated now, we will bring to the building permit process, where I guess some negotiation is possible. But if they follow section 1253, we have nothing to negotiate. They can tell us to go pound sand. Oh, you don't want to exit onto Summit? Too bad. It says in the rules we can't have an exit onto Summit. You lose. So in summary, I know my dreams of the estates at Fair Lady is fading, and those 55 families may never settle in Pataskala. However, do we really want to allow a manufacturing site to operate on a septic system? Is that even smart? Do we want to proceed without a legally mandated traffic study? Is that prudent given the development to our north? Do we really want just another cookie cutter manufacturing area, or do we want to build something to be proud of? Do we have to treat the residents along Summit Road differently than those along Graham Roads due to road classifications that no one really understands? If we want to do something different and amazing, it's not this application. Once rezoned to planned manufacturing, we will be tied to the new ordinance and be wondering what the heck happened when it looks just like Etna. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Ann Evans.
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we just have her use that microphone?
Should be. Okay, there you go.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Well, I'm Fair Lady.
I'm gonna swear you in.
Huh?
She has to swear you in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So
I
help you
do. So help me God. I'm Fair Lady. That's my farm. I bought it probably 45 years ago. And when we bought that, I said to my husband, you know something? We have to eat as well as have a place to live. So as long as that farming pays for the taxes, we'll leave it in the farm. And I did it for 45 years. I'm 82 years old. I'm not going to get the benefit of this, really. Not really. I mean, too old. I mean, I might have had it at 40 or something. I'd have had a good time. But 82, I'm just going to be paying medical bills. But anyway, I'm having the same thing in Johnstown. Oh, believe you me, they took my land, they took a land and just put $70,000 in it, for an acre or something for land that's going, for 300,000 an acre. So I know what all you people are going through, and I just hate it. I hate it as much as you do. And I know, but I see what's coming. You're not going to stop any of this stuff. I'm telling you, you can just do the best you can. And I decided I would prefer, I'm thinking of you people. I would rather see jobs here than people here. I had 2.5 miles of road frontage there. Years ago, I could have put houses all over there because I had a thing for the city, and I've got it at home in my thing that says I can put a house every 150 feet, and I own 2.5 miles of road frontage over there because that's the way I got that deal a long, long time ago. But anyway, so I don't want to flood your schools and, you know, I would rather see have jobs, you know. I mean, and I tried to do it so that didn't come all at once at you. I made him do it over a 6-year period. You know, I don't know, maybe I don't know, you know, I mean, you can't make everybody happy, but I was trying to do the best I could. That's all I know, because I like I said, I see it over there, what's happening. And the thing is, if you don't take advantage, that's the problem with Johnstown. Johnstown isn't taking advantage of that stuff either, and they're gonna be lost in the shuffle, because if you don't have money coming into your town, I don't know, like I said, I just did what I thought was the best thing to do for the land. I just thought, you know, maybe they could be huge housing developments, apartments, all kinds of stuff there. I didn't think that would be a really good idea.
I'd rather have houses than that.
No. Sir,
Would you really?
hold on.
All the people and stuff? Well, I don't, you know, like I said.
She has the floor, just let her speak.
Well, I don't know, because I think what's gonna happen in Johnstown, Pataskala, is we're gonna get.
Did you sell the land that was Calhoun?
Pardon?
Did you sell the land that is now Calhoun?
No. But, I'm sorry, I can't hear it.
He was talking about the land that for Kyle Moore, that was the lady that was 4 houses north of me.
Yeah.
She had that 200 acres behind us.
Yeah.
She's the one that divvied all that up, and she said all the 4 houses on Summit, she sold each one of those, that's 3.017 acres. So she sold each one of them separate to each one of us. You guys own one.
Yeah.
But and then sold the other stuff to, guy's last name is, starts with a D.
Yeah, they're not even gonna use any of my frontage, that made me sick.
Dellendorf bought that, Dellens, well, another name for him. So,
Okay.
Well,
that's how that broke up.
all I know is I'm just, you know, we just have to do whatever everyone wants to do, but I just think that, I thought there would be a chance that you'd have good incomes coming in there and some jobs, and it wouldn't flood your schools with children. But I don't know if you know, whatever, because, you know, like I said, I don't know.
Create another zone.
So,
Create a.
but all I can say is I was trying to spread it out over a period of time so you wouldn't be, I mean, these people are coming, you ought to see what they did over there take a run over there on Mink Street and see what they did. I mean, I own land over there. They just they came in, they said, we'll give you this much. They just cleared house. Everything. There wasn't an animal left. There wasn't a deer left. There wasn't a raccoon. Everything was gone. And you just can't fight people like that. When they come in with billions of dollars and the government's helping them, you're just done. You're done. So I don't know. Like I said, I was just trying to do something that I thought was right, but maybe it isn't. You know,
Thank you.
Thank you.
that's all I can say. You know,
Thank you very much.
and I will say this much, one other thing. I did this deal before they knew about Intel, so I'm sure if it doesn't go, I'll make a whole lot more money. I can assure you that, but I'll do whatever. I mean, I'll make the sacrifice.
That is time, so
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the God's truth.
No,
I, from the bottom of my heart, I can't say I don't care one way or the other. I do care because I was trying to do something right in the beginning. Like I said, they came to me and it looked like I said, well, I don't want to do it all at once. We'll do so much every year.
Okay, let's.
Thank you very
And I
much.
do have to
Thank you,
prove
Ms.
it.
Evans. Next up, we're back to, yes, Deb Gannon.
Thank you for letting me difficult to do that.
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about the case of truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Hi, I'm Deb Janaris. My address is 390 Warren Point Lane in Kyle Moore subdivision. And we've clearly heard from a lot of passion and emotion tonight. And thank you for that. And for the record, I personally don't think that you are a bad person or are coming from an evil place at all. So thank you for that.
I'm an innocent party.
And it's your land. You're welcome to do what you feel you need to do with your land, whether we agree with it or not. I have no problem with that, right? And I don't know that anybody here necessarily does either, but I think the overarching theme here is to make sure that it is thoughtful, right? We have heard a lot of passion tonight. We have heard a lot of emotion tonight, and that's well placed. We are Pataskala residents, and we live in Pataskala, and we love where we live, right? So we want to keep a lot of those positive things that we love. We are not anti-progress, right? We don't expect that this is going to stay a farm field for the next 50 years, okay? What we would like to see from the group of you here is, again, just some thoughtful approvals behind what's going to happen, right? And when you go back and you summarize and you look at the concerns that people have tonight, there are things that are based in fact, okay? Fact. There is no water and sewer. There is no budget for water and sewer. There is no plan for water and sewer for at least 2 years minimum, right? So that's a fact. Here we have a plan that's proposed to go forward with no protections for our wells, no protection for our septics. We have factual, real impacts to the groundwater renewals and the drainage in the houses that are at the ponds at Clark State. These are facts. It's a bit of an unusual process here, right? This isn't something in a parcel this size, from what we find, is typically a planned develop the PDD, right? And this is straight rezoning. So this is a bit unusual. That's a fact, and that comes with its own implications. We know that there are already identified traffic issues that don't just affect residents, but affect some of you that are driving through it, and really anybody who's driving through that area of Pataskala. Why would we put kind of the cart before the horse and approve a plan in a mode that doesn't require traffic study first? Why would we change that timing when we know it's already going to be a problem? I hear a lot of proposed and plans and maybe, and here's what we want to do. But again, they're not held to this. If you change the zoning tonight, they're not held to, this is a pretty plan. They've got some great ideas, right? They're not bad people either. I don't wish this on the company, but they could be gone in 12 months. They could go under. They could be gone in 18 months. Again, I don't wish that on you, but we don't have a crystal ball. This may be, they're not held to this. We're going to open Pandora's box if you approve this as a straight zoning change instead of as a planned development change. We can't go back. Once they get water and sewer out there, if this is planned manufacturing, right, that allows for retail. That allows for other things in there if you look at the code. The worst thing we could see is a Moo Car Wash and a Dollar General, and those suckers pop up everywhere, right? You get water and sewer out there, it doesn't have to be this pretty plan. It becomes more valuable, and it can be anything. You've opened Pandora's box, and you can't close that back up. That's a big concern for us. The buffering, again, a large site like this typically does buffering based on the whole site, but because you're doing it straight rezoning and they want to do it site by parcel, again, a little unusual here. That's a fact. It's a little bit unusual because of the size of this parcel that we're talking about. The percentage to build, Scott has been a great help to us. Thank you. You were in kind of a thankless job. Thank you for doing all of the patience that you have with us, but you do use the term changing the color on the map, which I think really condescends what the purpose of what the impact of what that is. You've changed the color on the map to innovation, but you've not defined what innovation is. If you look at the comprehensive plan, I believe it's page 109, it loosely defines innovation, and it shows, to Jeff's point, your percentage to build is about 40-45% max, really ideally 30%. You change it to the planned manufacturing, now we're up to 65% site of build. Now, that's a big difference when you're talking about Ward 2, where the only businesses at this point in this ward are a home-based landscaping business and the Mink Street Market, which is a home-based farm. Other than the schools, this will be the only non-residential buildings in the entire ward. This is a big change. Sorry, I guess I'm wrapping up. So I feel like you're putting a square peg in a round hole. If you want to do innovation, define innovation first. We're not saying no progress. We're not saying never make a change. We're asking you to please be very thoughtful about it. Have the right changes and the right assurances in place before you go ahead and open Pandora's box and make any approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the speaker request forms that we have. We usually allow the applicant to comment, provide based on the feedback from the audience. They'll also ask you to not kind of keep it brief.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll be real brief. I appreciate everybody's comments. Again, it gets to the chicken and egg discussion that we had earlier. If we want tens of millions of dollars of private sector money to be invested in improving those roads, because Licking County is not just going to do it because they want to do it, right? Pataskala is short on budget. Pataskala can't afford to improve these roads. So it's going to take public-private partnership to fix some of these things. And so, but in order to invest in the roads, in order to invest in the water extensions and sewer extensions, there has to be some zoning in place so folks know that we can invest and pay for these tens of millions of dollars worth of improvements. And again, this will take years. This will take a long time. And per your code, we couldn't get a building permit unless we had the road access, the sewer taps, and the water taps. So we can't even do anything until we have those things. What I think would be wise is, as we move forward and, after this on the zoning, is as the Licking County, New Albany, Pataskala, Franklin County, everybody comes together. We have open houses to discuss the road improvements that the smart traffic engineers propose, right? Let everybody see the various options that folks are looking at, right? Because we're going to be bound to that. Everybody's going to be bound to that. So I think having open houses moving forward about what are the traffic improvements? What are the various proposals for those? Same with the water and sewer. And many of the things that were brought up today, we're not against. We're open to making some of those changes during the application process. We're open to working with neighbors and figuring out water taps and sewer taps so folks have access to that stuff. I mean, we're open to about everything that was discussed tonight, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, this site, in terms of water runoff and all that stuff, has to comply with Ohio EPA. We can't harm or we can't harm surrounding properties, which is all regulated by the Ohio EPA. And so we have to be in strict compliance with this. And at the same time, the notion that we would do a commercial building on a temporary septic system, that's just not realistic, because state building code officials, Pataskala officials, no one's going to approve a commercial building using some sort of a temporary, leach bed or something that's in people's mind. That just won't happen. We could never get that approved. So again, it's a long process. This is a long journey. This is step one. There's multiple steps. What our proposal would be as we move forward with the city and everybody with all these steps is we have open houses. We inform folks about what the traffic improvements are going to be, what the sewer and water things are going to be, et cetera, because no one really knows. But in order to invest the dollars to do it, you have to have a public-private partnership. Otherwise, those road improvements won't happen because no one's got the money to do it. So we appreciate everybody's time and look forward to continued dialogue and conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're at the point now where the commission would be in deliberation. So I'll open it up rather than go round robin. We'll start just kind of open, but also if you have questions in the process to be directed to either staff or the applicant, you can do that. But basically, this is a time for us to decide or to discuss it and make a determination whether we're you know, working. And again, to summarize the action out of this meeting is that we're making a recommendation to city council. That's, and then the decision, the final decision is theirs. But anyway, discussion? Stephanie?
I mean, for me, I think the concept is too vague. I think the issues are too many. I think the potential negative impacts to the residents are too great. So for me personally, I'm not comfortable approving a rezoning based on the information we've been given. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you. David?
In our packet here, there's, for rezoning approval, there's a list of 8 items that should be addressed and hopefully covered. And I think that in order to approve something, you should have at least more than 50% of those items addressed in a positive manner. And I don't see 50% of those 8 items being addressed in an adequate manner right now.
So you're referring to section 121704?
Yes.
Okay. Would you want to run through them quickly? Which ones do you think are or are not? I'll put you on the spot here, I guess.
Yeah, number 1 is I think it meets that. It's harmonious with the general objectives of the comprehensive plan. Number 2 is a question mark. Will it be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so that it be harmonious in appearance? We don't know that because we don't know what exactly is going to go in there. It's all sort of conceptual. Number 3 will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing or future neighboring uses. That's probably on the negative side. Number 4 will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highway, streets, police, and fire. That I don't think is addressed adequately by the proposal. Number 5 will not create excessive additional requirements of public cost. That's a big question mark. We don't know who's going to foot the bill for road improvements and utilities. Number 6 will not involve uses, activities, processes, materials, equipments, operations that are detrimental to persons' properties. That's a question mark. And probably more to the positive side, zoning, planning and zoning, and Ohio Building Code and permitting usually kind of addresses that, but we can't address it right now because we're not allowed to put any conditions on an approval. Number 7 is a big negative. We'll have vehicular approaches to the property, which shall so be designed so as not to create an interference with traffic on surrounding public thoroughfares. It doesn't meet that right now because there is not adequate vehicular traffic and access. And number 8 will not result in destruction, loss, or damage of natural, scenic, or historic feature of major importance. We know that there's a stream and associated wetlands and tree lines on the property. It doesn't really say how those are to be addressed by a blanket rezoning.
Okay, thanks. Anything else then, Dave?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate that.
I'm a little confused with the surrounding areas. When I look at the map across the street from Morris, is that agricultural, single family, or is that actually now?
It's Facebook.
This?
So that is business. I know it's not,
This or
yes, all of that. I mean, all that up in
Here,
there.
that's general employment zoned in New Albany.
Okay. And what about the section right between there, the little triangle?
That's rural residential in Jersey Township.
And that hasn't been purchased or anything like that? That is all?
I don't know, it's since it's not annexed to the city, it remains in Jersey
It
Township.
remains in
so
Jersey
it's not
Township,
under
so you
our
don't know
purview.
what's going on there. But all the way down Morris then is all commercial now, basically across the street, or general business.
Here,
Across, yes, up in there, yes.
that's general employment.
General employment,
In
yes.
New Albany.
There's a difference, and that's why you have 2 columns under C. That's the zoning is general employment. The current usage is what's listed on the
Is
right-hand
what's listed
column.
under. I understand, yeah, I understand. It just
So,
says, oh, so that's the usage right now, but it is zoned general employment.
That's correct.
Okay. So that's coming no matter what. there was some things brought up, Scott, that I'd just like to ask. The one gentleman contradicted in one area where we could not put conditions, but then there was another area that could, and I apologize, I couldn't write those numbers down real quick. If the gentleman that had that information, if you could tell us what those.
I think he said 1253.
So 1217 is rezonings. So that's what we're looking at tonight. We're in the 1217s. So if we rezone, that's what we look at. Should it be rezoned, then 1253 applies. If it's not rezoned, 1253 does not apply to this project tonight.
So then in 1253 is when we can then put the conditions and everything else.
Correct. A rezoning would then implement 1253, which is the plain manufacturing regulation. So if it's rezoned, that applies. If it's not rezoned, it stays over here.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of clear that up.
Can I ask? I'll read 125310. Please, if you have it up there, read it. 125310, this is the new ordinance.
Sir,
The Planning and Zoning Commission.
So
we're not in the public speaking.
I just
forum.
wanted to hear.
Read it.
Yeah.
He was the one who brought it up, so that's why he was mentioning it.
Understood.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, nothing else then at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys have asked my questions, so I'm good. Nothing to say, nothing to add. I would just basically say, I agree with Stephanie. I agree with David concerning the 121704 criteria. Just a lot of concerns, sewer. I understand that these things will have to be met, but it's a lot of assumption. So I'm really concerned about that. So not being able to make suggestions to council, right? That's a huge concern. But that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say I agree with a lot of the feedback here that's been presented. I think it's a huge stress on the community. Like, if it gets approved as a plain manufacturing, they have to come back for all these other meetings there for the next phase, and they want to get on with their lives. I would be in the same situation if there was one next to me. So from that perspective, I'd much rather see this come through as a PDD, just to answer some of these questions and be able to address some of the concerns that are here. And I get there's some concerns with that as well, and going this route would also address some of that. But yeah, and same thing with David's. I think summed it up really well with that criteria. I agree with everything he mentioned there, going through as far as what we evaluate and the ratings on there. So.
Okay, thanks. And yeah, as you ran through that list, David, it pretty closely matched to the ratings that I had. I know a lot of them, if you put trust in the process, they will be addressed during the PM phase. But today, we don't know that, and that's where
we would hope.
Yeah, and it's just an uncertainty out there. So, and I agree with what Frank just said. It would have been, personally, I think it would have been preferable if it had come in as a planned development district. And again, I understand there were some kind of concerns on that process as well for this specific property. Anyway, having said that, any other discussion?
Just one more thing about, you see innovation zone, and you would hope that there would be something more innovative than just planned manufacturing. I know that's one of the allowed uses, but innovation zone sort of has this connotation that it should be something above and beyond what we normally have seen as far as development in Western Lincoln County.
Well, I guess there was one other comment too. I think somebody mentioned the innovation zone or the comprehensive plan not being well-known, and that was a long process. Gosh, 2 years or something, a lot of
Started
public,
in 2018
you
and
know,
was adopted in 2021.
there was a lot of input, a lot of meetings. So it's not really a surprise, or shouldn't be a surprise, I guess. But having said that, so again,
Mike, I have a question.
yes,
And this is for the council. If we could give the builder an opportunity to maybe, if they wanted us to table this, to allow them to try to check off some of this, as David pointed out, to give them an opportunity to make it a little bit more clear. Are we allowed, Scott, to put something like that out?
Speak up, please.
This is us. This is us having our discussion, please.
We don't hear the conversation ourselves.
You can table it if you choose. That's the pleasure of the commission.
I think that's.
Just putting it out there for people to.
the one thing I would say, if we're going to table it, there should be some definite deliverables as a result of that.
Agreed.
I think a lot of that can't be deliverable.
I think
Yeah.
1 through 8 has to be a percentage of it has to be deliverable. Because I think that's the defining argument here, is 1 through 8.
Right, but I think that you can't, if we tabled it and we talked about this next month, I don't think that they could address those deliverables. There's a lot. There's lots of just concept, right? It's a very vague concept that is changeable. And I don't think can be addressed, Jerry, or else, I would be okay with that. But I don't think there's a point in tabling it. Not the way things are.
Okay.
Yeah, I would be for tabling, but I don't know that they can,
I don't believe they can.
I think it needs to be a PDD for us to really, hold their feet to the fire as far as what that would be. So that'd be my only reason against it.
Okay. Well,
You're so nice. That's your problem.
Right. It's not mine.
So we want to take it to a motion? Is that what we want to do, and take it to a vote?
Yeah.
So everybody, please understand, when we put this to a vote, we put it for approval and then we vote yes or no. So when we put it up for approval and then we vote yes or no, okay?
Is there any reason for us to stay here longer? Are we going to hear anything? Because if you're speaking, you can't do that.
we're just about the point where we're going to make a decision. Are you?
I'll do it, yes.
Okay.
I recommend for approval rezoning application ZON-23-002 pursuant to section 1215.10 of the Pataskala Code.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to recommend to the council that this application be approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Frank. Discussion on the motion. And again, I know Jerry already said that, but if you, well, it's stated in a positive way, but that
Right.
obviously you vote the way you want. Okay. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Truax,
No.
Ms. Doherty,
No.
Mr. Rogers,
No.
Mr. Messina,
No.
Mr. Burring,
No.
Mr. Boggs.
No. So that motion failed. That will go to the city council with a recommendation to not adopt it. They could, well, first of all, it will probably be the second meeting in November, or perhaps the first meeting in
It has
December.
to be at least 30 days.
Right.
But then that's based upon when you can get it into the paper to notify it when the next meeting is. So it has to be at least 30 days before the public hearing before council. Notices will go out just like they did for planning commission. Those notices will go out to everybody within 300 feet as well for when the public hearing is scheduled.
Okay. And then, so again, that will probably be either late November or early December, but we don't know. Yeah. It typically is at least a month and a half. So, and then when city council goes through their process, just be aware, they can adopt it or they can approve it, even though we've recommended not, but it requires a supermajority of council to take that. So, anything else I need to add?
I don't think so, sir.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. We have a little bit of business left. You're welcome to stay for that, but if not, we'll give you a few minutes. Hold on just a minute. Let the room clear out here for a minute. Because we won't be able to hear it. Okay. Yeah, she might not be able to hear Council's the next step.
She had a question about the water.
About the what?
About the water.
Water service.
I know it too.
So put some perspective.
If everybody would, excuse me, if everybody would please continue.
Yeah, take your conversation outside, please.
Everybody, please continue to head out so we can finish our business, please. That's all right. Thank you.
I just want to ask you people something real quick. But I just want to, that Southwest Licking water thing. Can they form something where they can sell like shares or bonds or whatever they do for the public utilities? Because I'm gonna tell you something. I think that is gonna be liquid gold if you get that done. And if you can get where people could buy them, everybody in this room could have bought stuff. And I would buy a lot of this stuff because I believe that you have to have water and sewer. You have to have it. I don't care what you're doing. And I see it over in Johnstown too. Believe me, I go there too. I give them hell all the time because, you've got to get in the game. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You people have to see if there's I told Les Wexner years ago, why did you buy the damn thing? And he said, well, we're not allowed to. It can't be it can't be a private water.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So.
Scott, where would she take that conversation to that she's talking about?
The water and sewer district.
Okay,
Yes.
so take that to the water and sewer district.
Yeah, I mean, can't you form something where people can buy shares in that?
They would,
Pay for
it's
that,
separate from the city.
huh?
It's separate from the city.
Yeah.
So it's its own independent.
You would want
water
to
and sewer
contact
district.
them and ask them that
Yeah.
question.
I've been trying to, you can't get
I understand, man. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
that's-
Thank you
well,
so
that's
much.
okay. Like I said, I was just trying to do something because I know what flooding those schools is like. That's, I thought those would be incoming jobs, but maybe I'm not, maybe I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can try, but anyway.
Okay, moving on the agenda, item 6, or other business.
Yes, I wanted to mention that 2 terms are up in December, that's Stephanie and Frank. I gave you the posting, it was on your dais. It's not posted online yet, should be soon, but the deadline, I believe, is noon on October 27th. And then there's a lot of other positions coming up, like public personnel board review, records commission. So we don't know when interviews will be, but it's like last time, we'll contact you and say there's an interview, but it kind of depends upon how meetings work out, the number of applicants for the different positions, et cetera. So I just want to make you folks aware that if you wish to be reappointed, you'll have to go through the interview process and submit everything again by October 27th at noon. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other business to bring up? No? Okay, item number 7, excusing absences. Jerry was not here at the July 5th meeting. I'll move that we excuse his absence.
Second?
Thank you, Frank. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Truax?
Abstain.
Mr. Breuering?
Yes.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes,
Mr. Mancino?
Yes.
motion passes. Next, Stephanie from the same July 5th meeting. I'll move that we excuse Stephanie from the July 5th meeting.
Second?
Thank you, Frank. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Mancino?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Abstain.
Mr. Breuering?
Yes.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes,
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Truax?
Abstain.
Did she say Mrs. Truax?
I go by mine.
Maybe.
Moving right along. Okay, item C, Jerry's absence from the July 18th meeting, a special meeting. I'll move that we excuse his absence.
I second.
Thank you, David. Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Breuering?
Yes.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes,
Mr. Truax?
Abstain.
Mr. Mancino?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
motion passes. Okay, moving on to item number 8, we have 2 sets of minutes of July 5th regular meeting minutes. Everybody reviewed those, and are there any additions or corrections beyond the editing that was done? I see one cross out here already. Anyway, anybody else? If not, then I'll move that the minutes of the July 5th, 2023 meeting be approved as presented.
Second?
Thank you, Frank. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Mr. Truax?
Abstain.
Mr. Breuering?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Mancino?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Abstain.
Motion passes. And next, the minutes for the July 18th, 2023 special meeting. I'll move that, oh, well, anybody have any corrections or additions? Then I'll move that the minutes from the July 18th, 2023 meeting be approved as presented.
Second?
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Mancino?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes,
Mr. Truax?
Abstain.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Breuering?
Yes.
motion passes. Anything else tonight?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn
I
to
second.
Wednesday, November 1st, 2023.
Second.
Did I?
Yes.
Second? Okay.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Mancino?
Yes.
Ms. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Truax?
Yes.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes,
Mr. Breuering?
Yes.
motion passes and we're done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. What do you want us to do with this tree?
Give it back to us.
Okay.